I'll now quickly cut across to Dharamjot, who's there with me in the newsroom. Dharamjot, the developments since the time we've been tracking them, since the wee hours of the morning, it only seems to be escalating further and further. It only seems to be becoming more and more adverse at this point. Operation Sindoor, while we still await details from the Indian Armed Forces, what Idris has shared with us from the ground, it seems very grave.
You're absolutely right, Shivan, and it seems that the work has been cut out for not just India's ruling party, India's government, but also the Indian Armed Forces. Although clearly they knew what they were stepping into, it's not the first time that the Indian Armed Forces have been dealing with the neighbor. This is something they've done before. This is something they do every single day, day in, day out. We've seen ceasefire violations before. We're seeing it again. Many times in the past, it's been completely unprovoked. It's been without any attack taking place on Indian soil. Now we're seeing it in the aftermath of the deadly Pahalgam terror attack. But now, everything that's shaping up now, it's going to determine how the next few days are going to be, how tensions are going to be on the border between India and Pakistan. But rest assured, the Indian Armed Forces have been prepared for this moment. They've been preparing for weeks. They knew exactly what they were stepping into when they carried out the precision strike on terror camps in POK and the Punjab province of Pakistan at around 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. earlier, today in the morning. So a lot of developments will be expected, Shivan. As we know, there is going to be a cabinet security meeting at 11 a.m. that will be chaired by the Indian Prime Minister. There's also going to be a press conference from the Ministry of External Affairs shortly later in the day, where they will be briefing the Indian media. There's going to be a press conference from the Indian Armed Forces to share more details and information on the entire strike that was carried out, Operation Sindoor, as it is being called. More details will be shared about that later in the day as well. But a lot of development, as Idris rightly mentioned, on the front lines. Villages, civilians now paying the price of a lot of attacks from the Pakistani side. A lot of villages, border villages in other states, including Rajasthan and Punjab, have also been put on high alert in the past few days. They've been asked to brace for any and all kinds of circumstances, and we've been talking about this for the past couple of hours, how villages and people living over there near the border areas have been preparing in case any sort of unprecedented or unprovoked escalation is witnessed from the Pakistani side. Now, as I mentioned before, locals and living in those, in those sensitive areas have been asked to be prepared for weeks and for months at a stretch. They're storing food supplies, emergency supplies, rations at their homes. Some of these homes even have bunkers underground to ensure that the families remain safe. So given the situation, what it is like now, I think the next few hours, the next few days are incredibly crucial with respect to how Pakistan's retaliation, how Pakistan carves out its retaliation further across not just the line of control but also the international border, and how the Indian Armed Forces respond to that during the day, Shivan.
Dharam, and what is becoming more and more clear with the way Pakistan has chosen to retaliate and respond as a first reaction to Operation Sindoor is the fact that India did not target military installations, India did not target civilians in Pakistan, India targeted terrorist infrastructure, and then you see the Pakistan army coming out guns blazing, attacking Indian civilians in return. The nexus, the connection, it is for the whole world to see at this point what exactly exists in Pakistan, something that the entire world has known, but it is only becoming more and more clear by the way Pakistan is responding. We've heard of 3 deaths which have now taken place on the Indian side of the border in Poonch district, and it only seems to be becoming more and more grave. But you feel the way Pakistan is responding to this and the kind of heavy fire they're carrying out across the border, the heavy shelling is only and only proving the tight connect that Pakistani forces have for defending their terrorist infrastructure which exists inside Pakistan?
Well, Shivan, that has been the conversation for, not just the past few weeks, but for the past few years. And we've seen it with all the previous attacks that have been witnessed on Indian soil, be it the attack in Uri, be it the attack in Pulwama, be it this particular attack in Pahalgam. It's a pattern that we've seen over the past few years. Now, even though the Indian Armed Forces have taken retaliatory measures to ensure that cross-border terrorism is, capped and curtailed to a certain extent, these incidents keep happening again and again, and they do not happen in isolation. There is clearly a state-sponsored connect. There is state infrastructure involved, which is why for years we've been seeing this kind of cross-border infiltration year on year, season after season, and we've been seeing the Indian Armed Forces fight back against it for all these years. And you correctly pointed out, Shivan, in the past few weeks, in the past 2 weeks precisely, ever since the Pahalgam terror attack happened, as we've been discussing, Pakistan had many opportunities to try and work with India and find common ground and take course correction measures and take action in terms of neutralizing these particular terror camps that exist in Pakistan and also in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now, for the longest time now, Pakistani officials have been crying wolf about how they're also equally impacted by terror. They've been at the receiving end of terror attacks. But then such incidents and such kind of a U-turn on statements being made by top officials again raises the question, well, if India's neighbor has been so badly affected, so adversely affected by terror attacks, why does terror infrastructure still exist in Pakistan and exist at such a large and such a substantial scale? So a lot of questions here, which of course we're seeing answers to in the form of the retaliatory action that's coming from the Pakistani side, Shivan. Now, again, it's going to be a diplomatic conversation at the end of the day, not just military action, but there's going to be a lot of parallels that will come out of this. We've seen it before. We've seen it in the past 2 days. We're going to see Pakistan again trying to internationalize the issue and have other countries interfere. But the stance has been very clear, not just today, not just yesterday, but for years now, that this is a bilateral issue. This is something that India and Pakistan need to sort out. This is something where Pakistan needs to come on the table and help its neighbors try and identify all the spots on its own soil which is causing an issue, not just for its neighbors, but what it claims also for itself. We've heard the words. I guess now it's time for action. What kind of action Pakistan chooses, Shivan, that's the question.